Ladies and gentlemen, this just in from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Media moguls Floyd Wonder are now the richest men in the world. That's right, forget about Carnegie, forget about Ford, forget about Rockefeller. Floyd Wonder has the Midas touch. Sources say they're worth millions, some say billions. Look out, folks, here they come!
I don't really care, I'ma be a millionaire. Like, I don't really care, I'ma be a millionaire. Like, I don't really care, I'ma be a millionaire.
What's up everybody, welcome back to another video. Today's video is going to be super fun because we're talking about my favorite thing to shoot, that is cars. More specifically, I'm talking rolling shots and how I go about taking them. So let's go. Alright guys, so we're talking about automotive rollers today. I've done a video on how I edit my photos, which you can see right here. But today we're going to be talking about how I actually shoot the photos, because that is two very different things. How to edit them is one thing, and how I go about shooting them, setting myself up for those good edits, obviously, is taking the photo. So in this video, I'm going to go over what gear you should use, what your settings should be, and things to consider when you're taking automotive rollers. So starting with number one, we're talking gear. What do you need to take good automotive rollers? First thing that you need is a camera that you can switch over to manual. So plenty of point and shoot cameras now have manual settings. And the reason you need manual is because you need to have full control over the shutter speed. That is what allows for that motion blur in the rims and the road. That's entirely controlled by the shutter speed. Now obviously having full manual control of your aperture will help the shutter speed, and I'll explain that a little bit later in the video. So once you have your camera that can go into manual, the second thing you obviously need on that camera is a lens. So automotive rollers typically go hand in hand with wide angle lenses. And the reason for that is because you are in one vehicle that is in the left lane or right lane, and the vehicle beside you is relatively close when you're talking about the big picture here. I'm talking like 6 to 10 feet. So when you want that full car plus a little bit of landscape behind it, it's important to have a wide angle lens that allows you to capture all that. Now, if you live in the United States or somewhere with big freeways that are 10 lanes wide, that's where you can get a little bit more creative and have more of a telephoto lens. But that also plays challenges because the longer your lens, the more likely you are to get motion blur, not the good kind, but the ones that are going to make your photos not look in focus or sharp. So a nice happy medium is good. I personally shoot a 35mm lens on full frame. If you're shooting APS-C crop sensor camera, I would recommend anywhere between 16 to 24mm. That will be the sweet spot. Something to make note of as well is always keep a strap on your camera when you're shooting rollers, especially out of a moving vehicle. This is kind of common sense, but I've also been in scenarios where I'm doing video and photo bouncing back and forth, and I obviously take the strap off when I am using it on a gimbal. So I've been in plenty of scenarios where I'm holding a camera out of a moving vehicle with no strap, and I do not recommend doing that because it makes your heartbeat go way too fast, thinking about dropping your baby on the road. Now, aside from the photo gear you're going to need, obviously, let's talk about the vehicles. So you're going to have your subject vehicle that you're taking pictures of, but it's also important to have a camera car. Now, this is usually best if it's a sedan, an SUV, minivan, heck, basically anything that allows you to have lots of room out of that window to make sure that you can get different angles beside that subject car. So once you've got all your gear, you're ready to hit the road and get some rollers, let's talk about settings. So like I said previously, the most important setting for rollers is shutter speed. So that is what's going to entirely control if your photo is just sharp with everything stopped motion, or allow for that nice motion blur that we're trying to achieve with rollers. So a rule of thumb for shutter speed that I've always followed is however fast you're going, that's what your shutter speed should be at a minimum. So if you're going 60 kilometers per hour, you should have a 1/60 shutter speed. Now this is very rough, but it'll get you in the right ballpark. So I like to shoot really slow because I rely on in-body stabilization of my camera or lens stabilization, things like that. So with that comes higher risk that my photos are going to be blurry and not sharp. But when you do get a sharp photo, the payoff is more rewarding. So you're going to shoot more photos with a slower shutter speed. You're gonna have to throw out a ton of the photos, but when you do get those bangers, you're gonna be so happy that you took it with a slow shutter speed. So myself personally, I like to shoot 1/20, 1/30, somewhere in there. And again, so many photos get thrown out because if you hit a bump in the road or they hit a bump in the road, or they accelerate not at the same rate as your camera car, you're gonna have to throw out a ton of photos, which is kind of sad. But like I said, as soon as you see that one that you just nailed it, you're gonna be so happy. So shutter speed is number one. That is about 1/20 to 1/60. Let's just stick with that for now. Aperture will entirely depend on what time of day you're shooting. If it's midday, then obviously you're gonna have to bump that aperture way up high if you don't have a neutral density filter. And that's just to allow proper exposure. With a slow shutter speed, everything's going to be very overexposed, especially the highlights, the sky. So it's always nice to have either a neutral density filter, circular polarizer filter, something that will block a little bit of light out for midday rollers. Because like I say, it's gonna be f/22, f/16, which doesn't always give you the sharpest photo, which sounds kind of weird. But usually you want to stick with around f/8 to f/11 is my sweet spot. I find that's the sharpest that my lens will be, which is also a nice happy medium for having the whole car in focus. Now, if you're shooting rollers at night, then obviously 1/20, 1/30 is going to be doing you favors, if anything. But at nighttime now, instead of your aperture having to be really high to compensate for overexposing, you're going to have your aperture very low to compensate for being underexposed. Now, you might think you want to shoot your rollers at night at f/1.4, f/1.8, but then only the headlight or only one part of the car is going to be in focus. So that's where you also have to play a different kind of game. So f/4 to f/6, something like that will be a really good compromise. And then you're just going to have to substitute that with bumping your ISO up if necessary. Now that we've covered our gear and our settings, the third thing you need to think about is the location you're going to be shooting. And just like any other photograph, whether it's portraits or product photos, lighting is everything. So you could shoot a beautiful roller shot with the sun directly harsh at the car, and it'll look flat. It won't look as nice as if you'd simply put the sun on the other side of the car and backlit it. It's no different than a person or a product or anything really. It is still the subject of a photo, so you have to think of it like that. Lighting will make or break the photo, honestly. So always try to shoot at golden hour, just like if you're doing a portrait shoot. Think about the car as your model. You want to shoot in the most flattering light. It's going to allow for more lines in the car, more depth, more texture. Everything's going to come out of that car, which was beautifully engineered from the manufacturer. So you want to encapsulate that in your photo by using the light to your benefit. Now also, when you've got your light down, you want to think about the background. We get too caught up sometimes in just ensuring that you've got a really sharp photo of the car. Now, I've had really great photos of really nice cars, such as Lamborghinis, and then I get into post-production and realize that the background's just trash and it ruins the entire photo. So to avoid that, always think about what roads, like go scout ahead of time. Pick a nice setting, pick something with, scenic backdrops and cool roads, or if you're in a big city, pick something that's super interesting ahead of time, and then just drive on that road over and over and over again until you get the shot. It will be so much more rewarding in the long run, and it'll save you so much from doing Photoshop of power lines or garbage cans, stuff in the background that you didn't see at the time. Think about that stuff ahead of time. All right, guys, I would love to be out there getting more B-roll of showing you exactly what I'm talking about right now, but given the circumstances, I think it's best if everybody's just at home right now, learning what they can on YouTube and making videos just like this for you guys, and hopefully it made sense to you. So I can't wait to get out and shoot more rollers when this is all said and done. And I hope this video helps you guys. Let me know in the comments below if it did, or if there's anything left missing. I would be happy to answer any of your questions. Until next time, guys, remember to stay healthy, stay happy, and stay, just overall positive about everything going on right now. And I can't wait to see you guys in the next video.